Hey folks, I'm Rob.
And I'm Nathan.
And we are
Two Guys in a Ride.
Say, Nate, where are we at today? There should be like a sign or something.
Yeah, there should be a sign somewhere. Hey, we are at the SCCA Jack Pine Sprints at the Brainerd International Raceway in Brainerd, Minnesota.
That's right, and we're going to bring you some race footage, but more importantly, we're going to talk to some of the drivers and get their perspective and find out why they like racing and what has gotten them into this. So before we do that, Nathan,
click on the subscribe button down below and ring that bell notification so you never miss a video.
That's right. So what do you say, Nate?
Oh, let's go to the races. Hi folks, I'm Nathan with Two Guys in a Ride, and today we're out here at the SCCA races, and we're at the Brainerd International Raceway, and today we're with Sam. Sam, thanks for taking your time to talk with us.
Absolutely.
All right, so now you got into racing with your dad.
Correct, yeah.
So tell us how that started.
So back in about 2000, my dad bought a new Audi A4 stock and joined the Audi club through that, and we went to a few tracks with that, and I was about 10 years old, and through that we met some people who were racing go-karts out at the local track, and we watched them for a day, and at the end of the day my dad said, "Do you think you'd like to do this?" And I said, yes. So yeah, that winter we got into some go-kart leagues at Pro Kart, and then the next summer I bought a go-kart, and have been racing ever since.
And you've actually won a champ. You were Rookie of the Year when you started.
Year, yep.
Wow. And then you won.
And I won a champion. So I won championship in go-karts and one in cars.
Nice.
So, and a lot of second places, which is.
Now, does this is your car that we're standing in front of?
Yes.
Your dad also has a Mazda.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we actually have 3 Spec Miatas.
Okay.
2 of them are now endurance cars, but yes.
Okay. And so eventually from go-karts you said, well, let's get into something a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
How did that transfer happen?
Well, so I took a year off from racing to go to Audi Club events because the big difference is being able to shift, right?
Right.
In a go-kart, you don't have to deal with that. So I took a year off driving. My dad had a 944 turbo that was super fun at that time. So we went to Audi Club events. I started to learn how to shift. At the end of the summer, I did Skip Barber Racing School in their Formula cars. Again, to really transition to the other big difference is having suspension.
Yeah, go-kart you don't have it.
Right, so that makes the how you drive it a little bit different. So I did the Skip Barber Racing School, and through that I actually met somebody who wanted me to race his Golf in the NARC runoffs, which is that was at Lime Rock Park.
Okay.
So that was my first car race ever, and I got a whole season's worth of racing in that one weekend. It rained. I had never driven the car before, and I had to go out and qualify in the rain. The next day was dry. We had a caution, so I had to be at the front of a caution lap with 4 classes of cars faster than me starting behind me, all going into turn 1. And we actually got through it on the first lap and did not get through it on the second lap. So it's a good lesson to remember that it starts off difficult. Like, this is a hard sport to learn, but the perseverance is so worth it. Like, once you get in a groove and you meet all the people that can help you and be there as a community, and it's really a beautiful thing at the end of the day. But
You know, we hear that from not only racers, but from car collectors, people that belong to car clubs when you first start Audi, that it's a community.
Exactly.
So if you don't know the answer to something, there's probably somebody in your community that does.
Absolutely.
And that's willing to either at least give you advice or suggest where to go to get something or what to buy or...
Well, and I have to give a plug to Spec Miata because the people that I've met through this are just want to have more competition, right? We all just want to have more people running up there with us because that's where the racing is fun. You know, driving around by yourself, you can do that in a lot of different places. It's more fun to have this side-by-side, wheel-to-wheel racing that's so close. And you know, there's a couple of guys here that I've raced with for 4 or 5 years, and we can race side-by-side through 4, 5, 6, 7 corners in a row and never touch each other. And we're racing as hard as we possibly can, and we never hit each other. And it's really a beautiful thing.
I'm sure it's quite a feeling, isn't it?
Yes, exactly.
All right, well, let's talk about your car a little bit. So it starts out as just a regular Mazda.
91 Mazda Miata. That's right.
Okay, and besides the obviously the roll cage and stuff, has anything been modified in the engine?
We can't do just about anything to the engine because it's a spec class.
Okay.
So just about all we can modify is the exhaust, the intake, the suspension, and we can run the Hoosiers.
All right, and that helps to keep the competition sort of down to the driver.
Yes, exactly. It's very much a driver's class. Yes.
Okay. And anything like, can we pop the hood and take a look at the fuel cell and then maybe a little bit at the engine?
Sure. I don't know if that was gas cap. I mean, well, this is the trunk. The Miatas have the battery in the back, which is always
okay. Your cooling system?
My cool suit system. Yep, the cooler for that. I think the fuel cell's back here.
Back there.
And then this is what happens when we bump draft, which is very much a part of spec.
Well, and that happens a lot. I've been told that happens a lot in your particular class here.
We like to push each other. Find your team.
It's a love job, letting them know.
Pop the hood there, and we'll take a quick look at the engine. Okay, so pretty much a stock engine.
Yes, but there's a few builders who are sort of definitely good to look into if you want to be competitive.
Okay.
So I've gone with X Factor, who is awesome, good to work with. We did have a problem with my first motor, but I'm very happy with this one.
With this one, okay. And roughly, how much horsepower does it put out?
We just dynoed it at 123.
Okay. And how many foot-pounds of torque?
I think about 116. So this is the slightly smaller motor, which has less torque, but I get to weigh less than the newer Miatas that I race against. So they try to balance it out that way.
So RPM rise, you know, when you run these cars, are you running it in a high RPM range?
So these make the most torque at the highest RPM. So we run it all the way up to red line just about every time. And sometimes there's places out on the track where I don't shift because I know I'm only going to be in gear for a second and it's not worth it. So I just bop, 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 and then I brake for the next corner.
Okay, so Sam, other than driving the car, is there anything else you do in prep work, or you help out, or do you have a mechanic that does this work for you?
So I actually do most of it myself. With big projects, I will take some help, but all the general maintenance, which involves wheel bearing maintenance. The wheel bearings on these for some reason are like glass, so I take them apart and repack them after every weekend. Oil changes, brake pad maintenance, basically rotors and brakes and stuff like that. It is nice that they're very simple cars, but yes, and I like to do most of the work myself because it seems like every time somebody else touches it, they're over tightening something or they put it back together wrong, and then I go to work on it and I'm like, why do I let anyone else touch it?
So you're a bit of a perfectionist then. You like to have everything just a certain way.
I know the way that I like things to be, yes.
Now, and looking at the front fender on your car, we talked a little bit about the rear bumper because in the Mazda spec class you do a little bumping.
Yeah. So
tell us about these.
And I said earlier that I've raced with Chris and Jamie are my main competition here this weekend. I've raced with them for 4 or 5 years. We've never touched. Jamie has now run into me twice this year.
He's making up for lost time, I guess.
Something. And this was actually just him trying to get out of the way of somebody else doing something crazy. But he really was close to taking me out. Actually, you should come look at this side.
So will you eventually bend these back out again, or do you leave them?
Yeah, well, the one is bent out as much as, but this is the classic one, right, where you get the wheel. So this was at
Right up against someone's wheel.
Black Hawk in the carousel. Somebody was trying to pass me and slid out into me.
Let's talk about the inside for a minute. You got a lot of equipment in here. These seats come standard in about 3 sizes, and then you can have them custom molded.
Yep, exactly.
This one is standard size, or have you had it custom molded for you?
It's a standard size. It fits me very well, though. So
okay, and we've had a lot of people say that they didn't need to do that. What they had there really worked well. Okay, you have a fire suppression system in the car.
I have 2.
Oh, you have 2.
Although not necessarily. Do I know why? So the one is set up to spray the inside of the car, and the other one is set up to
spray the engine.
If I want to get out and spray the engine, correct.
Okay, and then so there are nozzles that point up inside the car. So it's just a lever that you pull, and then is there? I think on most of these there's a lever somewhere outside in case you're incapacitated. Someone can reach in, or
well, it's in the middle.
It's in the middle.
My understanding is supposed to be in the middle, so that if they're on either side, they can
That's the whole idea. An emergency crew can reach in and grab it. You have no windows besides the plexiglass that a little air vent to cool you when you're racing. Now, when you're strapped into these seats, people obviously think, okay, you got a harness seat belt, but you're strapped in. My understanding is so tight you can hardly move. It's almost uncomfortable.
Yeah. Every once in a while, like my door will be too far away and I can't reach my door, so I'm like, can somebody come close my door? Or my gloves are like fall on the floor and you're like, okay, I need help.
But that's designed so that if in the worst case scenario you head on into the wall at a high speed or you roll, that you can walk away from this.
You're not going to move much.
I mean, this sport is heavily regulated.
Yes.
I mean, if you have so much as an oil drip on your car somewhere, you're going to be required to fix it before you're allowed to race. So, okay, now you have got a computerized system, the TrackMate.
I do have a TrackMate.
So tell us about that.
It's very old. There are much better ones now.
But what does it do, basically? Are you ignoring your analog gauges?
Yes.
Okay.
It does everything else for me. So it records the lap time, which is that, and the RPMs are the 2 biggest things. So it tells me exactly when to shift. Which, when we're all running so close, your shift points need to be very exact. It does record all the data, although I haven't used it a whole lot. One of the things that I would recommend for people to look into, because I've gotten to use it a little bit recently, is the timing. No, the timing. Predictive timing. So finding a system that can predict your lap time, so you can know, I went through that corner differently. Did it actually help my lap time? So it'll tell you as you're going through each corner how. So I think our plan next year is to have something like that. Yeah,
there's a bit of a science. We look at some of the other spec class racers, and they have the digital thing in the camera, and they overlay their actual car time and tracks. They can compare it to other people, look at each corner, RPMs, acceleration, brake, all that stuff. So there's a little bit of a science to it if you want to get into that. Okay, now down in the middle of your dashboard, you have got another hot lap button. So what is that?
That's even older.
Okay, do you use that still?
Don't.
Okay, so your TrackMate on your dashboard replaces that.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
One piece of cool technology I would like to tell you about is we are actually trying to do live streaming to Facebook.
You had mentioned that.
Yes. So we have a hotspot in the car, and a live view solo box, I think, is the program that we're going with. That all connects to the GoPro, and then you can go into your phone and start the streaming, and it'll record it live. So we tried it yesterday. We have actually got to work in the past. I didn't get to work yesterday. I have my guy on the phone today, so I'm hoping today will be successful. But it's kind of a lot of technology to go into making something like that work.
Right, and especially to design to work at any location where maybe you don't have good cell signal or something.
Not all racetracks have great cell service.
No, wow. Of course, how many gears does this have?
5.
This has 5, and you do have reverse.
And I do have reverse.
And then back on the roll bar, now this may be part of your streaming thing, but you got another black box with a bunch of cables.
Oh, that's the radio.
Okay.
Oh, wait, which one? This one?
No.
That one.
That one.
That's the radio box. Yep. So that's so I can communicate with the pit crew. Which the biggest thing is calling the green flag.
Okay.
To be honest. like the biggest thing that will be helpful for you in a race is having somebody, especially when you get a big field of cars,
Yeah.
and you can't necessarily see the start stand. The race goes green when the flag flies, and if you can't see it, it's really helpful to have somebody there to help call the flag.
So these have removable hard tops.
Yes.
How does that function in a race? What if does it ever? I mean, could it ever come off in a roll? Is your roll bar thing designed to protect you in the event of all that?
The roll bars do definitely come up through the roof. But the roof, the biggest advantage to the roof is actually aerodynamics. So it helps the airflow over the car better. They are a little bit heavy, but we have to run them. So the club made the decision that it's safer. Although the MX-5s I think run without them, but it also gives we have to make weight anyway, so if everybody has to run them, and it helps with the aerodynamics.
So you have to weigh between a certain like two certain
yeah. So I have to
pounds.
weigh 2275, which is listed on the side of my car.
So let's say that after getting your car all ready and you sit in it, and all of a sudden you're not heavy enough. So what do you do?
This actually happened to us last weekend. So we had to do a longer race, and we couldn't fit enough fuel in the car to make weight. So we had to go find a piece of lead that we could hold to the seat, to the passenger seat side, so that I could make weight, and then I don't have to run as much fuel either. So we have a 25-pound bar of lead basically in my right seat.
So do you carry those kinds of things in your supply trailers so that if you do that you can find it, or do you just go out and say, who's got a piece of lead?
Usually I do.
Okay.
I did not this time.
Okay.
Luckily, Advanced Auto Sports is one of the companies that supports the Spec Miata community. They do a lot of rental and arrive and drive sort of stuff. But they don't come to Brainerd very often.
Okay.
But they were at Road America, so they helped with support for that. So they had all the hardware and the bars with the lead, with the holes drilled out already.
So it's a pre-made. So it isn't just a piece of lead; it's a specifically
and of course
specifically
I have
made
these
one
at home in my garage.
Right, of course.
I haven't needed them for a long time, so they didn't continue to come with.
Can we take a look at two items? One, your helmet. Two, your brace.
Do you want me to pull it out?
Yeah. So this to me this looks very similar to a motorcycle helmet.
Kind of.
Okay, so what's the differences?
So they have to meet actually very different standards.
Okay.
So I know that in motorcycle racing, if you get even a scratch on your helmet, you pretty much have to replace it because there's nothing else protecting your head.
Right.
These last actually usually about 10 years, I think. The styrofoam in them eventually starts to kind of degrade and get weaker, and that's why you have to replace them. But because of the cage around you, they don't
take much of a beating.
Take as much of a beating, and we're not falling on our heads very often. So.
Okay, so you have a really super tinted shield. Does that raise and lower?
Yes, it does.
Okay, is it vented?
No, but I can crack it if
you need to.
More air, yeah.
Okay, and do you usually drive with that down?
I do almost 99% of the time.
Okay, and you talked earlier about a communication system, a radio system.
Yes.
Is that inside the helmet?
Yes. So I have let's see. I have the mic here, and then the earbuds, which these are semi-custom ones. Which are actually quite a bit nicer than the previous ones that I'd had. So these are a good deal. And then it plugs in with the auxiliary cord.
Okay, right into the system that's built into the vehicle.
Exactly.
And then who are you actually connected to? Who's on the other end? Is it everybody and their mother on the track who's waving a flag, or
no, just whoever is my crew person at the moment?
Your crew person.
Yes,
okay.
Yes. So the person that I would like to take my tire pressures at the end, the person who can call the green flag, the person who can do some spotting for me, saying faster cars are coming up behind. Or
so it's somebody on your team.
Turn 3, yes, exactly.
Okay, so you have to wear a brace.
Yes.
Okay, let's take a look at that quick.
Yes, when we were talking about the seatbelts earlier, I was thinking, because this is sort of the revolutionary thing, right? This is what has stopped so many people, so many deaths, because this is what protects your neck. So this sits under your seatbelts, and then because your seatbelts don't
So your
move,
seatbelt comes down across these, okay?
Exactly.
This is behind your head.
This is behind your head, and these straps
Is this under your helmet or behind your
behind
helmet?
your helmet.
Okay.
And then these straps connect to your helmet, so that your helmet can only move this much. So your neck, this is all held in place by your seatbelts, and this protects your neck from snapping backwards, and these protect your neck.
So you don't have a whole lot of left-right movement.
No. This slides.
Okay, it does slide a little bit, so you
So
can't.
that's kind of
You
the
have
max.
enough, obviously,
it's
but
like this much. Yeah.
it's designed to keep you attached to it.
Correct, exactly. So your head can't move very far.
Wow.
History of the line.
Okay, so you mentioned that it was, you know,
Dale Earnhardt.
yeah. So you mentioned it was, you know, it's just part of the safety system. But why did the racing community insist on using these? What was the catalyst?
So Dale Earnhardt, a NASCAR driver, very famous, after his death, because he died from his neck moving too far. Actually, now that I think about it, I don't know who exactly was involved. I don't know if that was Junior or if it was.
No, it's Dale Hart Sr.
Well, no, but who was involved in pushing for this? Yeah, I don't know either. But,
I think it could have just been NASCAR, period.
yeah,
Also.
right. So they went into development to figure out something that could keep people's necks in place, because that's, I think, historically been the biggest reason people die in car accidents.
And so that, but Dale's accident was the catalyst
Yes,
that caused
changed the community.
Yeah.
That
Community.
caused the community to
One
come
of the
forward.
top all-time drivers in NASCAR.
Exactly.
So.
You know, so I mean, it's just interesting to see how. I mean, this is you're probably safer on the track
Right.
than you are
Yeah,
driving
that's
home in
correct.
your truck and trailer.
Definitely. The 6-point harness and the cage and the neck restraint is yes, I feel much safer on the track always than.
Now, we had talked a little bit earlier about there was some science to what you do. So you do some calculating every time you come off the track.
Well, so because it is such a tight race between the cars, and one of my biggest advantages is that I get to weigh less. So I want to come in as close to that 2275 as I can.
Okay.
So I always weigh myself before the race, so I know exactly what I weigh at that point, and then we take the mile of the how many miles the track is, how many laps we're gonna do, how much weight is that in fuel, and then how much over do I want to be. So I try to be about 5 pounds over, because if you cut it really close, you never know how long you're gonna be sitting on.
You'd hate to run out of gas, you know, 100 yards from the finish line.
Well, and usually I'm not going to run out of gas. It's more so you're going to be underweight.
You're gonna underweight.
Yes,
Okay.
Yes, and then you get disqualified.
So
So I want to play it close, but I want to, just.
So when you finish the race, you have to be at a certain weight too.
Correct. Yes. So they weigh.
So it's not. Oh, that's interesting.
Yes.
So it's not only the weight at the beginning of the race, but it's the weight at the end.
Well, and actually.
Wow.
Yes. So I weigh it myself at the beginning of the race just to see what I need to do to weigh the correct amount at the end of the
Right.
race. Yep.
Wow. Not only do you drive race cars, I have a feeling you just like driving.
Yeah. Exactly.
So behind us is a long trailer with a semi cab.
That's right.
And so you would need a CDL license to drive this.
That's correct. I just got my CDL license so that I could drive these things to the track. My sponsor is Interstate Truck Driving School, so we're working closely together, and he's got a lot of fun trucks that can do some good stuff.
So you drove the semi, well, basically a semi here,
exactly.
and then you get into a small car and you race.
Yes, and then I get back into that at the end of the day, and it's like, I don't understand what's going on.
So what's your favorite memory on racing?
I think it might be one of my early memories of my last race of the year I won my championship. I was 15 years old, racing a Yamaha Junior go-kart, and somebody's dad, my biggest competition that weekend, the championship was going to be decided this weekend, and his dad comes up to me in the morning, and he says, you know, these boys have egos, right? And I thought, I'm a 15-year-old girl, I don't know what to say to you. So I didn't say anything, but I went out and I won every race that weekend, and I secured the championship.
Well, Sam, thank you so much for taking your time to share your story and your car with us. We sure appreciate it.
Absolutely.